Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We'll take you inside the CattleFax Outlook Seminar and hear what the experts think about the markets for the remainder of 2021. Plus, we'll discuss how the Beef Checkoff has worked for the past 35 years to increase demand for U.S. beef.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Auctioner. We're pleased to bring you continuing coverage from the recent Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show in Nashville. This annual gathering allows cattlemen and women from across the country to gather and create policy for the industry. We asked several attendees to share their thoughts on some of the biggest challenges they're facing on their own operations.
I think one of the biggest issues facing the cattle industry today is probably the uncertainty of the economy in the current climate and just not knowing what the next year or so is going to look like.
Biggest issue up in our area is going to be drought and sustainability. Having feed available for our cattle producers in the northern Great Plains is a huge issue right now, and that's going to affect our supply in the future.
One of the biggest issues that I see right now for the cattle industry is the drought that's happening in the Pacific Northwest right now. It is definitely going to limit herd size, and feed supply is going to be tight.
The biggest facing the cattle industry today is probably, at least I'm going to speak for my area, is the being able to acquire land and pasture and space. I know that is our biggest limitation, and the cost of entries there are very, very tough. When you're competing with, economic growth and that kind of thing, it makes it very, very difficult.
Pork and poultry are very, very tough competitors, and that's one of our biggest challenges, is just helping to share our story. We're a very sustainable product, produced in a sustainable way that, there should be a lot of appeal to consumers, but it seems like we often have a target on our back for a lot of various reasons, and just helping to get our story out is one of the big challenges that we have in front of us here in the foreseeable future.
I think one of the big issues that we have is the fact that there's so few of us out there, and 1-2% of the U.S. are ag producers, and it's just getting the 99% of the population we have in the U.S. to realize what we do in terms of feeding the world and how we take care of our livestock, because there's so many misguided thoughts out there. And I think if the world, if the people in the U.S. knew who we were and what we did and how we operated as producers, as livestock and land stewards, we could change a lot of opinions.
NCBA is a grassroots organization led by producers who volunteered their time and effort to ensure the beef business remains strong and sustainable. And joining us now to talk more about these efforts is NCBA Vice President Todd Wilkinson. Todd, why don't we begin by just telling our viewers a little bit about your operation there in South Dakota?
Absolutely. I come from where it's dry, and let's put it very dry right now. So our operation, I'm in a cow-calf operation with my son. We have a stocker operation, and then my family owns a 8,000 head finishing barn for fat cattle.
Excellent. And you spent a lot of your career volunteering your time to organizations like NCBA. Why do you choose to do that?
Well, frankly, if you're going to get involved in an industry that you're trying to make some money on, if you're not prepared to put up, then you should shut up. And frankly, I'm going to step forward with both feet and do the best job I possibly can.
Well, there's a lot of issues facing our industry, as you know, right now. And what would you say in terms of overall update of some of the key issues that are impacting our industry?
Well, certainly anybody that's in the beef industry right now is going to talk about market price discovery. And I think we're actually making some headway. That's a long-term, decades-long issue, but I think that the course that we have chartered right now is actually going to yield some results. And some of the other issues that are out there, certainly with the administration change, I'd be remiss if I didn't say sustainability. It has went from here to here in terms of the administration's emphasis on it. The good news is that our NCBA organization has been on top of this for a number of years. So we're hitting the ground running with a program that we're going to be able to roll out and explain to the producers how they are already sustainable and can deliver that positive message.
As you talk to producers, what are a couple of the issues that are top of mind, or typically things that they want to visit with you about as an NCBA leader?
Well, they really want to talk about predominantly everything Washington. and you know, that is where we can have a big role and a big impact. You know, as I said, market price discovery and how do we fix these markets, you know, that's a big issue. To me, as a cow-calf guy and a guy selling fat cattle, you know, my ability to capture some dollars to that cow-calf guy and pull some money away from those packers and put it back in the chain, that's a big issue to all the producers out there. And you know, where you're at, a lot of it can depend upon, right now for me, it's the drought. And up in my region, the drought is having a really serious impact, major cow liquidation going on right now. And that brings all sorts of extenuating issues with that.
Yeah. You mentioned Washington, D.C. It's always been the opinion of NCBA that it's important to have a really strong membership to make our voice heard in D.C. Why is it so critical to become a member of an organization like your state and National Cattlemen's Organization?
You know, because it's a way to actually go out there, put your voice in Washington, put your voice in my case, Pierce, South Dakota, and don't sit back and just accept what's coming at you. You know, if you're not in there to make change, if you're going to make the industry move forward, you have to be involved. And I don't know of a better organization for this industry than NCBA, because we really do get involved.
Well, you're a leader at a pivotal time in the beef cattle industry, and we appreciate all your efforts and energy. Thank you.
It's great to be here.
The cattle industry needs a strong voice, and that takes all of us working together. Stand with Todd and other members of NCBA by joining today. It's easy to sign up. Just call 866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. One of the best attended events at the Cattle Industry Convention is always the CattleFax Outlook Seminar. It's a chance to hear what the experts think about the factors driving the markets and what we can expect for the rest of the year. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Russell Nemitz joins us with a recap of this can't-miss event.
Well, as always, it was standing room only at the CattleFax Market Outlook program here at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show this year in Nashville, Tennessee. And with us today is CattleFax Chief Executive Officer Randy Block. And Randy, let's start with the top. Let's talk about beef demand and where we're at with beef demand, and then trickle it down to your guys' market outlook for cattle producers in 2022 and beyond.
Well, you got to be really pleased with beef demand, with everything we've been through with COVID. Again, originally shutting down all these restaurants and losing 50% of our demand historically has come from restaurant businesses. So retailers responded, especially in 2020, and then opened these restaurants back up in 2021, refilling that pipeline, seeing people wanting to get back out and eat and enjoy. Demand's been on a run. Again, we were at a 33-year high is where we are year to date. That's pretty powerful. That's $250 a head improvement in beef demand that we've seen in here over the course of the last decade and a half. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, all things considered, that is a really powerful testament. Let's talk about your market outlook now for 2022 and beyond, because you guys, your whole team gave some very positive news at your market outlook program here in Nashville, looking like higher prices in the near future.
The stage has been set for higher prices for well over a year. It's there. We've had demand at these kind of levels. Again, we're at our peak in supplies now. That supply peak was pushed back a year because of the COVID backlog. Supplies have peaked. They're going to continue to get smaller over the course of the next 3 years. again, fewer animals to harvest, smaller production, smaller per capita beef supplies. With this kind of demand, when supply is down and demand is here, prices are going to go up. And we think they're going to have a pretty significant move here over the next 12 months.
Let's talk about what's happening in the western half of America, the northern plains, Pacific Northwest, and of course the extreme west. I mean, just severe drought, which is having and will have an effect on cow numbers, about 1/3 of America's cow numbers, in fact. And talk about that and how that's playing a role in these higher prices that are coming our way.
Well, it's been devastating for our producers in the west and in the northern plains to go through what they're going through, and no grazing resources available. Again, thank goodness we'd had a few good years before that and a little leftover feed, but we're really moving through the hay supplies now. Stocks are down, prices are sky high, so a lot of folks are being forced to pare down the size of their herds, which is very difficult decisions for folks when they spend as much time making those breeding decisions as they do. But Dr. Douglas was a little more optimistic. By the time we get to 2022, we could start to see a little more of an El Nino weather pattern that would start to show up, which I think has to give us some long-term optimism of the overall weather situation here in the U.S. in total.
Yeah, absolutely. As we kind of wind down, let's talk about some of those prices that you showcased here in Nashville. Walk us through like where you think fed cattle are going to be, some of those calf prices in 2022, and maybe feeder cattle.
Well, I think as you look at the fed cattle market this next year, we're going to end up averaging close to 120 this year. Fed cattle prices should average closer to 135 next year, get as high as 145 or 150 at the peak. During the year. Calf prices, I think you need to expect that calf prices are going to spend a lot more time up around $2. We could see them trade above that as we get into the peak of the year in 2022. Number of our summer videos and that activity, there will be good optimism. And again, the key thing I think for producers to understand is the demand is already there. I mean, we have the profitability in our system today. It's just reallocating that profitability to some degree. So this is not a big reach from an outlook standpoint. It's just the money is already in the system.
Well, we appreciate you sharing some of that information and for sharing some very positive news at this year's Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show. Again, Randy Block, Chief Executive Officer at CattleFax. By the way, today, Dr. Art Douglas announced his retirement after a long and prestigious career at CattleFax. And with a very special message, here's Dr. Art Douglas himself.
I live in southern Arizona in cattle country right now, and I'm happy as a lark. But I do want to say these 45 years, I enjoy weather, but I have also enjoyed talking to you folks, knowing that you guys are the true stewards of this environment in the United States. And I really applaud you for the great job you're doing on your ranches. If we didn't have ranches, we wouldn't have the open spaces that we have across America. And I hope it stays that way in the U.S. But it's been great. I wish you guys a lot of luck. Bye.
And we'd like to add our thanks to Dr. Douglas for your years of service to the beef industry. Still ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, one of the speakers at this year's Cattle Industry Convention in Nashville shares his inspirational story. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Getting to run a family farm is a dream come true. When you can grow good grass, there's opportunity to grow plenty of weeds. We want to use the tools that will help us do a better job. I would like the legacy to be that we took really good care of the land and we truly did it as a passion and we did our very best for the right reasons.
Each year, I'm amazed at the speakers we have at the Cattle Industry Convention, and this year was no different. Russell Nemitz caught up with one of them who shared his inspiring story with the crowd.
He changed my path from being on a football field to a farm field.
Well, this year's Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show closing general session featured inspirational speaker Jason Brown, who among other things is a retired professional football player who actually made the transition from the NFL to agriculture. Jason, thank you so much for being with us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen and speaking to cattle producers from across the nation. Talk about your message that you delivered to these producers here in Nashville.
It's an inspirational message of faith, family, and of course, farming. We're tied to the land. When I came here today, I knew that I was going to be a part of a family, all right? Anytime you share some very awesome and unique experiences when it comes to agriculture, I feel at home.
Absolutely. Now talk about the transition that I mentioned earlier from being a professional athlete to a farmer.
So it was very unique going through, my midlife crisis and my coming to Jesus moment. And Jesus said, look, I've got something far greater in store for you than your whole NFL football career. And I'm like, really? Like greater than all of this, fortune and fame? And he said, yes, I want you to feed my people. I want you to be a farmer. And you want to know how much it takes you out of your comfort zone, how much it's just going to just turn your life around, because I'm not a generational farmer, okay? I knew nothing about agriculture, nothing about raising livestock, but you know what? You got to dive right on in.
Talk about your farm a little bit, what you're raising out there, and the work that's being done to make sure those that are in need of food you're helping with.
So it's a 1,000-acre farm, a little bit of everything, row crops, small level gardening, as well as a lot of livestock as well. I have a small herd, about 50 head of Angus cows. But for me, that's all the responsibility that I need at the time. My wife, she's trying to move on up to 100, head, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around, the rotational grazing, switching out the pastures, here and there, making sure I have some good, stand of pasture, there, but because trying to, use less baling and, trying to build up enough of my, pasture so they'll have enough to graze over the winter. And so it presents some unique challenges every single year, and I'm still learning.
It's an incredible story, Jason. And I have to ask folks, you played against some of the toughest and meanest dudes in the NFL during your career. How does it even compare to farming? Because it's a pretty tough industry too.
So some of the biggest, toughest guys I've ever been up against have been at most maybe 350, 375 pounds. There's nothing compared to a 1,500, 2,000 pound bull, okay? No comparison. And so I've put some of those skills, to challenge, before saying that, okay, instead of, luring some of my cows with some sweet feed, you know what? I'm going to use my brute strength, all right? I'm a former offensive lineman. I know how to make them go where I want them to go. Guess what?
Wrong.
Yeah. you start to learn just how smart, all right, these animals are, and they demand respect.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're tickled to have you here at the Cattle Industry Convention, and folks that weren't able to join us here in Nashville, you're also an author. Talk about some of your books, and if they want to learn more about you and some of your inspirational messages.
Yes, sir. So Centered, Trading Your Plans for a Life That Matters. So my transition from the football field to the farm field, all of the ups and downs, the miracles in between, it's an awesome act of faith. The most epic trust fall that you can ever make. And check it out, Centered, Trading Your Plans for a Life That Matters.
Well, Jason, we appreciate you joining us on Cattlemen to Cattlemen today. And Brian, let's show folks at home, this guy's the real deal. He's got boots on. He has some boots on.
Come on now.
Jace
went on now to danpost.com and found a pair of 16 extra wide. That's exactly what I needed.
Oh my God, 16. I can't even imagine walking around in a pair of 16 boots, but this guy's doing it. Jason Brown, former NFL player, now farmer. And I'll tell you what, folks, we're happy to have him in agriculture.
Still ahead on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll take a closer look at the Beef Checkoff and some of the highlights from its first 35 years. We're back right after this, so stay with us.
Nasalgen 3 is a new 3-way intranasal BRD vaccine that offers young calves unrivaled protection against devastating respiratory diseases, including IBR, BRSV, and PI3. And it has a unique blue shadow, so there's no second guessing which animals have been vaccinated. To up your protection, choose new Nasalgen 3 PMH, the first and only 5-way intranasal vaccine on the market. Talk to your veterinarian and visit nasalgen.com to learn more.
"35 years ago, the Beef Checkoff program became a reality. Since then, the National Marketing and Research Program has had one primary goal: driving demand for beef. Here's a look back at some of the many Checkoff milestones that have influenced beef demand.
Cattle producers don't wait for things to happen. They roll up their sleeves and get to work. That's what happened when the first Cattlemen's Beef Board met to officially launch the National Beef Checkoff in October 1986.
$1 per head, and everyone participates as a cattle producer. We're very pleased with the fact that this is a cooperative type program that everyone's going to engage in, so that everyone can say, look what I did.
For 35 years, the producer-led Beef Checkoff program has shaped the industry through promotion, research, and education initiatives. Take a look back at some of the ways the Checkoff has driven demand for beef. In 1987, Beef's first ad campaign captured TV viewers' attention with celebrities Sybil Shepherd and James Garner promoting beef, real food for real people.
You know, I'm not easily annoyed, but I never liked the way the vegetables always fell off between the sirloin on my beef kebabs. I fixed that. I don't put vegetables on my beef kebabs. In fact, I believe that's why someone invented salad. Beef, real food for real people.
In 1992, Checkoff-funded advertising evolved. For the first time, beef, it's what's for dinner, linked mouth-watering product images with Aaron Copland's unforgettable rodeo hoedown theme. By 1993, research showed 80% of consumers were aware of beef, it's what's for dinner. The campaign's next chapter featured actor Sam Elliott's recognizable baritone voice, proclaiming the convenience of new heat-and-serve prepared beef items. The network commercials helped increase sales by more than 130%.
Beef, it's what's for dinner tonight.
In world markets, Checkoff dollars work to promote U.S. beef in Japan, Korea, and elsewhere, giving international consumers a taste for U.S. beef that has led to rising beef export numbers. The Checkoff also funded research to improve beef safety, working to reduce incidents of E. coli in beef, and creating the annual Beef Safety Summit to share ideas and practices to meet new food safety challenges. Checkoff programs also gave consumers new beef product choices at retail and in restaurants. Muscle profiling research delivered more carcass value for the chuck and round through development of new cuts like the flat iron steak and the petite tender. Over the years, the Checkoff has helped fund the National Beef Cook-Off too. Media attention made this one of the most widely publicized beef recipe contests ever, reaching more than 245 million people with new beef recipe ideas. In December 2003, a challenge came when a U.S. cow was stricken with BSE. The scare shut down beef exports and threatened consumer demand. Through rapid, decisive action, the Checkoff reassured consumers with information about beef safety and the protocols in place to prevent BSE from entering the U.S. beef supply. In the wake of BSE, the Beef Checkoff supported the We Care campaign in Japan. The effort rebuilt trust among Japanese consumers and restored export demand for U.S. beef. On the home front, the Checkoff funded the Masters of Beef Advocacy program, aimed at equipping people to tell beef's positive story. Since its launch in 2010, more than 10,000 people have completed MBAs and become empowered to advocate for beef and the industry. Meeting beef production challenges has also been a focus. The Checkoff made online BQA training modules and certifications available at reduced cost, and also sponsored an antibiotic symposium, bringing together top researchers to share ideas about human and animal antibiotic resistance. Beef has always been a popular choice at restaurants, and the Checkoff has worked to promote beef with partners such as Taco Bell and Quiznos. The result? Millions of additional pounds of beef have been sold at those chains. There's also been an ongoing effort to work with chefs, dietitians, and other consumer influencers, giving them the facts about beef's role in a healthy diet and the protein-packed nutrition power beef offers. The effort included an alliance with the American Heart Association, and in 2018, that organization certified more than 20 Beef It's What's for Dinner recipes as heart healthy. The Checkoff has also promoted veal through efforts including the recent nationwide Discover Delicious campaign. Meanwhile, Beef It's What's for Dinner extended to social media and a website filled with beef recipes, information about beef cuts and cooking methods, and videos featuring beef producers. The outreach got a fresh new look in 2018 with the launch of the Rethink the Ranch video series, reaching millennial consumers with facts about beef and beef producers.
Yeah, these are the people and the places that keep Old MacDonald running like new, where commitment and innovation help make sure beef will always be what's for dinner, and maybe breakfast, lunch, and the occasional snack. Meet today's farmers and ranchers who bring beef from pasture to plate at beefitswhatsfordinner.com.
In 2019, the Beef It's What's for Dinner website surpassed 1 billion consumer impressions in a single year. Targeting young consumers, the Checkoff developed new science-based beef production courses reaching middle and high school students across the U.S. The Checkoff's commitment to producer communications hit its stride in 2020 with a producer-focused newsletter called The Drive and the popular Your Dollar Does ad campaign. Both award-winning efforts inform stakeholders about Checkoff programs and results. So there you have it, proof positive that from day one, producers steering the Beef Checkoff have meant business. Every day since then, they've worked to maximize the Checkoff dollar's return on investment. And for more than 35 years, they've built demand for beef.
The National Beef Checkoff program is led by volunteer cattle producers from across the country who are appointed to represent their state and serve on the Cattlemen's Beef Board. Russell Nemitz caught up with this year's Beef Board chair.
Well, the Beef Checkoff program continues to return an amazing value to America's beef cattle producers for every $1 per head that's invested. And with us on the program today is Hugh Sandberg from Western Colorado, the Cattlemen's Beef Board chairman. And Hugh, before we talk about that incredible return on investment, the Beef Checkoff is also celebrating a milestone here in 2021. it's a birthday.
It is. It's our 35th anniversary from when the checkoff was first enacted, and we're really excited with we can showcase what's happened with the checkoff over the past number of years, 35, and it's a positive story to show and to tell.
Well, you can't hardly go anywhere in America or the world for that matter and not have the Beef Checkoff jingle, the rodeo music jingle. I mean, when somebody hears that, they know they're talking about beef.
Absolutely. You know, the product recognition that we have as a result of our contractors through the Cattlemen's Beef Board and ultimately those checkoff contractors is phenomenal.
Let's talk about that return on investment now, because it really is incredible. For every $1 per head that goes into the program, it's returning way more back to the producer and the industry.
Absolutely. Our last ROI showed that for every dollar invested, we're getting $11.91 return on that. That's a pretty good investment, and you can delve deeper into those details, and certainly there's other aspects of the checkoff that have a higher ROI. And it's pretty phenomenal what we've done to drive demand for beef, considering where we came from. Look at where the checkoff was. You know, for those that got to see Randy Block this morning and talking about where we were and what demand was, you know, I think something that stood out, you look at that export market. We went from 2% to 18%. That's a direct result of the contractor USMEF that we have to the Cattlemen's Beef Board.
What are some of the other key programs you want to talk about today that $1 per head Beef Checkoff is helping to promote and fund?
Well, obviously, you know, over the last year, we've seen a lot of changes, and you look at how the contractors pivoted to an online platform and drove that demand. Last year was a pretty challenging year. And look at the demand profile we had for our product, because we've shown people how nutritious it is, how good it is for them. And when times are tough, it's kind of a comfort food for people. And we had to help them to go back and utilize that product, because a lot of them hadn't grown up cooking that product. And so through the checkoff contractors, we gave them recipes and ideas about how to prepare that product. And we gave them the opportunity to be at home with their families and have a dining experience that maybe they hadn't done in a number of years.
Let's be honest too, Hugh, we're not talking about a ginormous advertising budget that you guys at the CBB get to work with. I mean, it is very slim, all things considered, but you guys around that table take your jobs very serious to make sure every dollar goes to where it should be.
Absolutely. You know, when you look at those producers sitting around the table, we all have farms and ranches at home. We make decisions every day on where we're going to invest our dollars that we work hard for to benefit that ranching operation. And I think those members that you see on the Cattlemen's Beef Board and on the operating committee take that same responsibility when they come in and that same attitude as they would if they're spending their own dollars. They're trying to do the best they can for an industry that has been very good to us.
Well, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time for us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen to give us kind of an update on what's going on at the Cattlemen's Beef Board and, of course, that $1 per head beef checkoff. Again, Hugh Sandberg, the Cattlemen's Beef Board chairman from Western Colorado. With that, we'll go and send it back to you.
Now, to learn more about how your checkoff dollars are being used to increase beef demand, go to beefboard.org and click on The Drive to subscribe to a free newsletter that highlights the positive ways the checkoff is impacting beef producers. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll take a closer look at the industry's premier educational event, Cattlemen's College. That story when we return. Stay with us.
When the field is your office, you never get tired of going to work. Cut, rake, bale, repeat. New Holland offers the power and versatility to get through the day. From small squares to large squares and everything in between, New Holland has you covered. Visit your local dealer today to find out more. New Holland.
The National Cattlemen's Beef Association takes pride in being a leading source of producer education. And Cattlemen's College is famous for its stimulating and thought-provoking sessions. Here's Russell Nemitz with a closer look at one live animal demonstration that offered expert advice on how to make better decisions when selecting your replacement heifers.
Well, for over 25 years now, NCBA's Cattlemen College has provided thought-provoking and stimulated sessions, all designed to improve your operation back at home. And this year's slate of speakers and topics were another outstanding set of great information provided to those attending the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show here in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, one of this year's speakers was Dr. Kent Anderson, Director of Genetics at Zoetis, and you presented actually out here in the trade show area, in the cattle demonstration area, the live cattle session. Let's talk about this year's topic, genomic tools for heifer selection, breeding, and marketing decisions. A great topic, especially for cow-calf producers.
Oh yeah, it's a fun topic because traditionally we've picked our heifers based on visual appraisal. But now, there's new tools whereby, thanks to genomic tests and genetic evaluation, we can know a lot more about prospective replacement heifers than just what meets the eye.
How important is that, Dr. Anderson, to have this type of technology and information now at our disposal, especially during some, challenging times for the U.S. beef cattle industry, especially for those guys back in cow-calf country?
Well, costs are high, as you know, especially feed costs in many parts of the world, and we have drought, too, in many parts of the world. So, we think it's really important to be able to evaluate these heifers for things beyond the traits in the seen world. So we have 18 different traits that span the range from fertility all the way to carcass merit. We wrap those up in the form of economic indexes to boil it down to make it simple for producers to make decisions based on just a few numbers. But at the same time, we can also inform sire-parent determination, genomics for breed composition to incorporate maternal heterosis. And so we know we can do a way better job of selecting replacement heifers with today's technology than visual appraisal alone.
Well, we're kind of in between sessions right here, but we were here for the start and during yours, and the stands were packed. So obviously it's a topic that a lot of folks are interested in. And I like the description in the program. It's kind of a collision of old school thinking with this new and exciting technology now available to us.
Well, it is. And tradition isn't all bad, and we celebrate tradition throughout the cow-calf and other segments of our business. But wouldn't it be nice if we can augment the tradition with some technology to, more times than not, pick the longer lived, more productive females, because that helps us a couple of ways. We have more heifers to sell, and we also save the costs of developing heifers that then might disappoint us. So it's a fun new technology.
Well, and let's face it, let's just boil it down. At the end of the day, all this stuff is designed to hopefully help us be a little bit more profitable back home, and we can't continue to be scared of all this new and exciting stuff out there that's available.
Well, even old dogs like me can be taught new tricks, and so this is a new trick that, we really think can help folks make better breeding decisions at the commercial cow-calf level.
And I guess my last question, Dr. Anderson, is if a guy's out there watching this and he kind of wants to learn a little bit more about these new genomic tools that are available, especially in the area of heifer selection, breeding, and marketing decisions, where should we point them to?
Well, it's really just as easy as doing a search on the word inherit select. So inherit select. And there's a website with all sorts of information about the product, how it was developed, and then also the validation of the product. And we also just invite a good old-fashioned phone call to talk about it.
There you go. You heard it from Dr. Kent Anderson, Director of Genetics at Zoetis. Don't be afraid to pick up that old telephone and make a call if you have to, but as he mentioned, there's also a ton of information available on this topic, genetic tools for helping to select heifers, and also with the breeding and marketing decisions that go along with that. So a great topic here at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Nashville this year. With that, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
Now, if you were unable to attend Cattlemen's College in Nashville, you can still access the information from the event. All the sessions were recorded and will be available for viewing online. Just visit ncba.org and click on the Producers tab to view this valuable content. Still ahead, it's time for another visit with the one and only Baxter Black. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, I'm Tom Elliott with John Deere.
If you're looking for the best in cattle industry news, information, and education, then don't miss NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Each week we cover important topics such as herd health and cattle handling, plus updates with congressional and industry leaders about today's top policy issues, and stories shot on location at cattle farms and ranches around the country. Don't miss NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen on RFD TV and on YouTube.
Did you know that Prefert makes over 1,000 different farm, ranch, and rodeo items? And now, thanks to Prefert Direct, it's easier than ever before to get access to every item Prefert makes delivered direct to your local dealer. For more information about Prefert Direct, visit us at prefert.com. Prefert, America's #1 name in farm, ranch, and rodeo.
We know you're up before the dawn because the cattle rise before the sun. And you spend long hours in the saddle because the herd isn't always over the next rise. And you care for the land because you know it takes care of your family. And we know you do great work. And it's time to tell that story to the marketplace. IMI Global is here to help you do just that.
The world is on a diet. Seems no matter where you look, every fruit cake with a recipe has got a diet book. But I think if they were honest, I'll bet they'd all concede the omnivorous indifference of a cowboy's all you need. He's in tune with Mother Nature and can live off the land, from the mountains of Montana to the muddy Rio Grande. He's the ultimate consumer. He'll eat anything he finds. Well, I've seen him lick the peel and paint off Forest Service signs or chew a steel fence post just to get down to the meat. He'll eat playing cards and barbed wire. Anything a cow would eat. A drumstick from a buzzard or a wilted Christmas wreath. Then finish with a railroad spike just to pick his teeth. He'll drink water from a cow track, eat the claws of a grizzly bear, and you won't find no leftovers. He eats feathers, bone, and hair. He makes hunters run for cover. He scares hikers half to death, and he leaves no trace behind him, just the smell of his bad breath. And if you doubt what I have told you, I assure you that it's right. I have painted you a picture of a cowboy's appetite. And though it may not look too pretty, it's exactly like I've drawn it. He'd probably eat a bale of hay if you put apple cider on it. So the world keeps on a-jogging and a-sipping diet pop. But the cowboy and his tapeworm ride the range and eat non-stop. So if you're overweight and worried, you should dine with him a while, because there ain't no chubby cowboys in existence in the wild. You can join me for dinner later. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
Time now for Weather Watch with meteorologist Matt Makins.
Matt Makins here with this week's Weather Watch. Let's get right into it. An update on where we stand so far this summer in terms of temperatures and rainfall. There's been some improvement in moisture, which is going to be good. We'll talk on that in just a second. La Nina, that's the impact for the next two bullets here. La Nina returns for fall, winter, and spring 2022, and that will have some impacts, especially across the plains, and not good for the drought situation across the west. All right, let's hit on temperatures. Now, your August edition of the newspaper here, National Cattlemen, indicates a lot of heat across the west, and there's a full breakdown in here. Just know the heat across the west does continue, as you know. Now, the other side of that, and I didn't hit too much on that in the newspaper, is where we've been cooler than average. And that's Texas into sections of Kansas, Missouri, down along the Mississippi into the southeastern U.S. So there have been some colder than average pockets so far this summer, and that does continue. That outlook matches what we chatted about last time with cooler than average conditions here in the south. So not everyone is hot this summer despite a lot of the headlines you may be reading elsewhere. Now, as far as precip values, there are some bad stories here across the northern high plains, some of the driest on record. Where we've had some good news is down across the desert southwest. The monsoonal flow has kicked in, brought in some water for New Mexico, parts of Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California. In Arizona, Tucson has had its wettest month on record, so there's some notable precip there. Good news, drought areas there continue, but the drought numbers are decreasing thanks to the monsoon this year. That's an update on the summer. What about the fall, winter, and spring? Let's hit on La Nina and worry about that if you're in the plains. If you joined Dr. Douglas last week at the convention in Nashville, he showed you a map just like this. Looks at ocean conditions. We look right in here. Colder than average, those blue shades. That part of the ocean tells us La Nina is in effect, and the atmosphere above it reacts. And then eventually the atmosphere over the U.S. changes, and it reacts, and the jet stream flow and all of those things. The weather pattern just reacts to La Nina, even though it's so far away. Now, that reaction every year may be different depending on La Nina, so not every year is the same. But for C2C, too much to break down for your outlook. So join me in the fall edition of the 2021 National Cattlemen Directions Magazine, or in September's issue of the newspaper. I'm going to have a breakdown of what La Nina means for your region and for many in the plains. Look for sharp bouts of cold weather again this season and the drought to continue.
There's no lack of talent among beef producers, and each year NCBA holds a contest sponsored by Norbrook to find a cattle producer to sing the national anthem at the opening general session of the Cattle Industry Convention. Russell Nemitz introduces us to this year's winner.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
Well, there isn't anything more patriotic than the Star-Spangled Banner. And about 10 years ago, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, with the help of our friends at Norbrook, sponsored a national anthem contest here at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show. And with us is the 2021 winner, Carrie Belke from Nebraska. And Carrie, we're catching you right after you sung our national anthem at the opening general session here in Nashville, Tennessee. Talk about that experience and what it was like to sing our national anthem here in Nashville.
It was such a huge honor. I am such a proud Midwesterner. I could feel the sense of pride. Everybody was really standing at attention. It was an auditorium full of proud Americans. And it's a difficult song to sing, but when you're singing it from the heart and when you feel that sense of pride, it felt really good. I felt the love.
Absolutely. Now, how did you learn about this contest, and was there a little bit of nudging from one of your loved ones to throw your name in the hat?
My husband, Eric, he is a feedlot veterinarian, and all of his colleagues and coworkers come every year to this convention. And when he was seeing some of the information about registration and some of the pre-convention information, he said, "Hey, I just saw that Norbrook hosts a contest to sing the national anthem. You should do this," because he knows that I love music. I grew up singing and playing, and so I thought this will be a good way to combine two of the things I love, my pride in the cattle industry and my love of music.
Absolutely. Well, we are very thankful that you did. Let's talk to Beth Jones from Norbrook. Of course, you're sponsoring the National Anthem contest for the NCBA here at the Cattle Industry Convention. What a great contest. Talk about the contest itself and why you guys are supporting it so strong over these years to support some of rural America's finest singers out there.
Well, you know, it's our version of The Voice or American Idol, or something along those lines. But we are honored to be able to do that for the winners and bring their families into town. And we thank Dr. Eric for that little nudge, and so we're excited to do that. We love supporting NCBA and the National Cattlewomen and any of our local events and things like that. We try to stay engaged and with our customers and community.
All right, before we let you ladies go, Carrie, would you recommend this contest to other singers like yourself, even those that might just do it in the shower or around the house or in the corral?
Absolutely. I had to say this probably is the only way I'll ever get to sing in Music City, USA. One of my friends said, this is probably a dream come true. I'll get to sing at the Opry on Thursday night. Yeah. And I thought, winning a singing competition in a cattlemen's organization, that's the only way I'm going to make that line. So it's pretty specific, and it's fun. It was so easy. I uploaded a video. There was a series of judges that looked at the videos and picked finalists, and then it was just a vote. So I felt the love. I had shoved it down all my friends' throats. Please vote, please vote, please vote.
Thousands and thousands of votes.
Yeah.
Well, like I said earlier, we're glad you did, and we did feel the love in there. 5,000 plus cattlemen and cattlewomen from across America heard Carrie Belkey sing our national anthem to the very best. And for more information on the NCBA's National Anthem Contest, sponsored by Norbrook, and how to get your name in for the 2022 Cattle Industry Convention, which, by the way, is headed for Houston, Texas, just visit ncba.org.
Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.